President-elect Donald Trump has said a lot of awful things about a lot of people. In fact, it has become arguably his defining characteristic as a presidential candidate and now as president-elect. But something that he tweeted last week may have been the worst thing that he has ever said. Trump tweeted that not only did he win the Electoral College by what he described as a landslide, but he would have won the popular vote as well were it not for the millions of illegal votes. And in a subsequent tweet, he named 3 specific states where there was supposedly widespread voter fraud that kept him from winning. It would be tempting to read these tweets as yet more empty boasting from Trump. Here is a man so arrogant, so self-impressed, so utterly convinced of his own greatness that he cannot accept that he lost the popular vote to Hillary Clinton, even though he won the Electoral College and therefore legally won the election. There must be something going on. There must be some explanation for why he didn't dominate the election and win the popular vote as well as the Electoral College. And so he boasts that, well, if you take away all of those illegal votes, I totally would have won the popular vote too. And I think that's a credible reading of those tweets. It's possible, perhaps even likely, that Trump had no conscious intention of undermining the entire American political system by saying those things. Some have suggested that perhaps Trump is doing this intentionally to distract us from something else that he or his incoming administration is doing. And while I think we should definitely be paying attention to that sort of thing, Trump doesn't strike me as an evil political genius. He strikes me, and has always struck me, as a narcissistic dipshit with no attention span, thin skin, and a big mouth. But that doesn't mean that tweet wasn't an incredibly dangerous and reckless thing for a man in Donald Trump's position to say. On the basis of no evidence whatsoever, he asserted the existence of widespread voter fraud, millions of illegal votes, something that would be unprecedented in American history. All the evidence we have suggests that voter fraud of the type that Donald Trump is alleging, in-person illegal voter fraud, people casting votes they should not be allowed to cast, is a virtually non-existent problem. It practically never happens. Republicans will often appeal to the specter of this kind of voter fraud to justify proposing laws that have been shown to have the effect of suppressing voter turnout, particularly among people of color and people who are living in poverty, who traditionally have a very hard time making it to the polls on election day to vote. And unlike the kind of voter fraud that Donald Trump mentions in those tweets, voter suppression does have the potential to affect the outcomes of elections because it can effectively disenfranchise thousands of voters in certain districts. For some reason, Trump doesn't mention the very real problem of voter suppression and instead raises an alarm about the non-existent problem of voter fraud. But where did he get that idea? Yes, voter fraud is something that Republicans commonly mention in a more general sense, but where did Trump get the idea that there were millions of illegal votes this time, in this year's presidential election? Well, I can't be sure, but if he got it from where I think he got it, his tweets are even more alarming. 2 weeks ago, the website Infowars published a story claiming that there had been 3 million illegal votes cast in this year's presidential election, and without those votes, Donald Trump would have won the popular vote as well as the Electoral College. Sound familiar? It could just be a coincidence. After all, that Infowars story was published 2 weeks ago, and Trump only tweeted his accusations about voter fraud a few days ago. Maybe Trump has access to the same source that also provided the information in the Infowars story. It's not certain that Donald Trump is reading Infowars and treating it as a legitimate news source, but this wouldn't be the first time that it certainly appears as though Donald Trump was doing just that. During the Republican primary campaign, Donald Trump gave a speech in California during which he made the bizarre claim that California's drought was not real, that it was artificially created because the state was holding back all of the water and flushing it out to sea. Where did Donald Trump get an idea like that? Quite possibly from Infowars.com, which ran a story making the exact same claim before Trump gave his speech. Infowars is a website founded by and featuring radio host and documentary filmmaker Alex Jones. Jones is a 9/11 truther. He has suggested that the Sandy Hook shooting was a staged event. He has suggested that the Boston Marathon bombing was a staged event. Jones is a far-right, religiously fanatical, anti-government, New World Order, paranoid conspiracy theorist. Oh, and in case you're wondering, the Infowars story about the millions of illegally cast votes that may or may not have been the basis for Trump's tweets was fact-checked by Politifact and by Snopes.com. Politifact found it to be false. Snopes found it to be unfounded. There is absolutely no evidence to suggest that there were millions of illegally cast votes in this year's election. No reason for Donald Trump to suspect that, to fear that, much less to publicly say that. Unless, perhaps, he read it on Infowars and just assumed that it must be true, because he considers Alex Jones and Alex Jones's website to be trustworthy sources of information. And if indeed that is the case, that should be unacceptable to all of us. We are talking about the next President of the United States, soon to be Commander-in-Chief of our armed forces, soon to be in charge of the executive branch of our federal government. I don't have faith in Trump's judgment to begin with. And if we are facing 4 years of that judgment being guided in part by the paranoid delusions of Alex Jones, we are all in a lot of trouble. Hey folks, hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe. And also, please consider helping me to make more videos like this one by supporting this channel through Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/Steve Shives to become a patron. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.